In the heart of the bustling market, where countless alien beings were traded like commodities, there was one who stood apart. She was different. Her eyes, a mix of deep sadness and quiet defiance, locked onto the ground as her body trembled under the weight of heavy chains. Her wrists were shackled tightly, cutting into her skin, yet it wasn't the pain that consumed her mind. It was the hopelessness that gripped her heart. This was her life now, bound in chains, treated as nothing more than property, and sold to the highest bidder. She had become a mere object for others to use and discard. Her name had long been forgotten by most, and even if she remembered it, it didn't matter. Names meant nothing here. The alien woman, barely out of childhood when she was first captured, had been through more than any being should endure. She had been beaten, starved, and forced to do things she didn't understand. But now, in this cruel marketplace, all she could do was wait for another master, another day of torment. The others around her, too, had lost hope. They knew that those who came to buy slaves were never kind. They were powerful, rich, and cared for nothing but their own desires. The alien woman's skin, pale blue and marked with the scars of her past, made her stand out even more in the crowd. But no one looked at her with kindness. They only saw her as a tool, something to be used until it broke. A few buyers passed by, glancing at her with cold, uninterested eyes. One, a brutish alien from a distant world, made a loud, cruel comment about how she would be perfect for his needs. He reached out to touch her arm, but she flinched away instinctively. The market vendor, noticing this, sneered and yanked on her chains, pulling her back into place. "Stop resisting," the vendor barked. "You're lucky you're even being offered for sale. No one else has the stomach for your kind." Her mind spun with thoughts of escape, but she knew there was no way out. Even if she tried to run, the chains would stop her. Even if she fought, she was too weak, too broken. She was just another slave, trapped in a cycle of abuse that had no end. Just as despair began to overwhelm her, something unexpected happened. A new buyer entered the market. He was human, unlike the others. He didn't seem like he belonged here. His eyes scanned the crowd, and for a moment, they met hers. The alien woman could see something in those eyes, something that the others didn't have. Compassion. She wasn't sure if it was just a fleeting hope, but for the first time, she felt a flicker of something in her chest. Could it be possible? Could someone actually want to buy her, not to use her, but to help her? The human man approached the vendor, speaking in a low voice that carried a sense of authority. She couldn't hear the words, but she watched as the deal was struck. The vendor's greedy smile faded as the human paid the price, far more than she was worth in their eyes. He wasn't like the others, and for the first time in years, she dared to hope. This could be the change she had longed for. She had no idea what the future held, but she knew that this moment, this unexpected act of kindness, was the beginning of something she couldn't yet understand. And so, as the chains were unlocked and she was freed from the metal grasp, the alien woman took her first cautious steps into a new chapter of her life, unsure of what would come next, but willing to follow the human who had given her a chance. The market buzzed with life as merchants shouted, trying to sell their wares to the crowded streets. But amidst all the noise, the alien woman's gaze was fixed on the human who had just bought her. She stood there, the chains now loose around her wrists, yet she felt like she was still trapped. It was hard for her to trust anyone, especially someone like him, a human, a species she had never known to show kindness to those like her. The humans she had heard of were warriors and conquerors, not saviors. As the vendor led her away from the market's main square, the human walked alongside them. His face was calm, his expression unreadable. The alien woman couldn't figure him out. Why would he, someone from a world so far away, be interested in her? What could he want with someone like her? She had no value, no purpose in this life except to serve, and yet he had chosen to pay the price for her freedom. She didn't speak to him. There was nothing to say. Her voice, once full of hope, had become silent long ago. She kept her eyes down, walking with slow, hesitant steps. The chains that had been around her wrists now lay in her hands, but she didn't know what to do with them. The weight of the past hung heavy in her mind. "Are you hurt?" The human's voice was soft, but there was a note of concern in it. He hadn't raised his voice at all, not like the others in the market, who had shouted and belittled her. He spoke like she was a person, not a piece of property. The alien woman lifted her eyes to him for the first time, startled by his kindness. She could see that he wasn't looking at her like the others. He wasn't judging her. His expression wasn't full of disgust or superiority. Instead, he was offering something she hadn't known in years: respect. "I'm fine," she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. She hadn't spoken much in a long time, and the words felt foreign on her tongue. She hadn't known what it was like to be treated like a person for so long. It was both comforting and unsettling at the same time. The human nodded, as if accepting her answer without question. There was no sense of doubt in his gaze. He had already made his decision. He wasn't going to hurt her or demand anything of her. Instead, he simply walked with her, as if it was the most normal thing in the world. They passed through the busy streets, and the alien woman couldn't help but notice the strange looks people gave them. It was rare to see a human in these parts, even rarer to see one buying a slave, especially a broken one like her. She felt out of place, but the human didn't seem to care. He led her down quieter, calmer streets, away from the chaos. Finally, they arrived at a small, modest home on the edge of the city. It was nothing special, just a small house with a garden, tucked away in a peaceful corner. The human opened the door and gestured for her to step inside. She hesitated for a moment, unsure whether to enter. But there was something about the way he stood there, waiting patiently, that made her feel like it was okay to go in. Maybe this was the start of something different. "Welcome," he said, his voice kind but firm. "This is your home now, if you want it to be." The alien woman stepped over the threshold, her heart pounding in her chest. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, she felt something she hadn't felt before. Inside the small, cozy home, the alien woman stood frozen, unsure of what to do next. The door closed gently behind her, sealing off the noisy world outside. For the first time in years, she was in a space where there was no threat, no shouting, no chains, but it felt strange, too quiet, too peaceful. She wasn't used to it. The only life she knew was one of fear and pain. She had to remind herself that this wasn't like the others. This man was different. The human, noticing her hesitation, smiled gently. He walked over to a simple table in a corner and motioned for her to sit down. "You must be tired," he said, his voice calm and steady. "I'll get you something to eat, if you're hungry." She didn't answer immediately. Her eyes scanned the small room, looking at the simple furniture and the warm light that filled the space. It wasn't grand, but it was far better than any place she had ever known. It didn't feel like a prison. But still, the fear clung to her, deep in her chest. It was hard to believe that anyone would care enough to change her life. "I'm not used to this," she finally said, her voice shaky. She couldn't remember the last time she had spoken this much. To be treated like I'm more than a thing. The human paused in his steps, glancing over at her. His expression softened, and he came back to stand before her. "You are not a thing," he said firmly. "You are a person, just like me. And I'm going to make sure you know that." His words struck her like a sudden storm, blowing away the dust of years of mistreatment. A person. Could it really be true? Could someone see her as more than the worthless slave she had been taught to believe she was? The human knelt down before her, his eyes steady, locking with hers. "I know you've been hurt," he continued, "and I know you've been treated horribly. But here, you'll be free. I'll make sure of that. I don't care where you came from or what's happened to you. You're safe here." She could hardly believe it. The promise he made was too big, too impossible. But the sincerity in his eyes made her want to trust him. She wanted to believe that someone could want nothing from her, but only offer kindness. It was hard to accept, yet part of her couldn't help but long for it. I don't know how to trust you, she said, the vulnerability in her voice clear. It's hard. I've never known anyone like you. He stood up and gave her a reassuring smile. It's okay, he said. You don't have to trust me all at once. Just take it one step at a time. I'll be here. You won't be alone. She looked down at her hands, still slightly trembling. The chains that once bound her were gone, but the emotional scars were still fresh. Why are you doing this for me? She asked, her voice soft. What do you want in return? The human smile faded, and he walked over to the kitchen area, where a small pot was heating on the stove. I don't want anything in return, he said honestly, without hesitation. I just want to help. Everyone deserves a chance to be free, to live without fear. And I know it's going to take time for you to feel safe here, but I'll do everything I can to make sure you do. Her chest tightened as his words sank in. She had never heard anything like this before. She had been conditioned to believe that she was nothing, that she was only as valuable as what she could give. But here, in this small, peaceful home, she was being offered something she had never imagined. Chance to simply live. Thank you, she whispered, barely able to believe it. The alien woman felt a tear slip down her cheek. It was the first time in years that she had allowed herself to cry, to feel anything other than numbness. The human turned to her, his eyes soft. You're welcome. And remember, this is your home now. You're safe here. The days following the alien woman's arrival at the human's home were quiet, but in a way that made them all the more unsettling. The house, with its warm walls and simple comforts, felt unfamiliar. Everything seemed so normal, so peaceful, and yet she couldn't shake the feeling that she didn't belong here. It was too easy, too good. After years of being treated like less than nothing, it was hard to believe she could truly be free. She woke each morning to the smell of food cooking, something she had not experienced in a long time. The human man always made sure there was something warm for her to eat, but the alien woman struggled to accept his kindness. How could someone care for her this way? She had been a tool, an object for so long that the concept of being treated as a person seemed foreign. But still, she couldn't bring herself to leave. Something about the safety of this place kept her grounded. She spent her mornings sitting by the small window, watching the world outside. The human's home was in a quiet area, far from the noise of the market. The peaceful surroundings gave her time to think, though her mind often wandered back to the painful memories. Her fingers would lightly touch the scarred marks on her wrists, reminders of the chains that once held her. It was hard to believe they were gone, even though she could feel the absence. One afternoon, the human invited her to join him outside. Come on, he said with a warm smile. I'm planting some flowers. You can help me. The alien woman looked at him skeptically. I don't know how to plant flowers, she admitted. Her voice was soft, and she looked away, embarrassed. She had never had the chance to do something as simple as plant flowers. The idea seemed strange, like a luxury. It's easy, the human chuckled. I'll show you. It's a way to take care of the place, and you can help make it beautiful. She hesitated but followed him outside, unsure of what to expect. The garden was small but full of promise. The human dug small holes in the soil, placing seeds gently into the earth. Just like this, he said, handing her a small seed packet. You plant the seeds, water them, and watch them grow. The alien woman took the packet with uncertain hands. She didn't know what she was doing, but she followed his instructions. Slowly, she pressed the seeds into the soft soil, marveling at how simple it all seemed. The action of planting something, of nurturing it, felt strange to her, but it also felt right. As she worked alongside him, the alien woman felt a quiet sense of peace. She wasn't used to such calm. There was no one yelling, no one forcing her to move faster or demanding her obedience. There was just the soil, the seeds, and the human beside her. showing her how to care for something that wasn't meant to be used and discarded. When they were finished, the human stepped back and admired the garden. "It'll take time, but you did great," he said, smiling. The alien woman nodded, her heart strangely light. For the first time in a long time, she felt like she had done something that mattered, something that didn't involve pain or suffering. It wasn't much, but it was a start. She looked at the small garden they had created, and for the first time in a long time, she felt a small spark of hope. "I never thought I'd be doing something like this," she said, her voice still quiet but filled with a hint of wonder. "I didn't think I was allowed to." The human gave her a reassuring smile. "You're allowed to do anything here," he said. "You're free to choose." Those words echoed in her mind long after they had finished their work. She was free. It was a word that felt unfamiliar, but she was beginning to understand it. Days turned into weeks, and with each passing day, the alien woman found herself growing more comfortable in the human's home. She had started to help him with simple tasks around the house, like cleaning or sorting items, but it was the small moments of conversation that made the biggest difference. In the beginning, the alien woman spoke little. Her past had made her cautious, and trust was not something she could give away easily. But the human was patient. He didn't rush her, didn't demand anything. Every day, he treated her like she was important, like she mattered, and that slowly began to change something inside her. One evening, as they sat in the quiet of the living room, the human spoke softly, breaking the silence that had settled between them. "I know you've been through a lot," he said, his voice steady but gentle. "But I want you to know that whatever happened before, it doesn't define you. You're not your past." The alien woman looked at him, unsure of how to respond. The words were kind, but they felt strange. Could it really be true? Could she leave her past behind and start over? It felt impossible, but as she looked at him, sitting there, calm and accepting, it started to seem like it might be. "I don't know how to live like this," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've always been told what to do, when to do it. I don't know how to. Just be." The human nodded, understanding. "That's okay," he said. "You don't have to know everything right now. We'll take it one step at a time." And they did. Slowly, the alien woman began to change. She started to smile more often, even if it was small at first. She enjoyed the quiet moments they shared, sitting by the fire, reading together, or simply talking. They didn't need to speak much. There was something comforting about just being in each other's presence. One afternoon, as the sun set behind the hills, the alien woman sat beside the human on the porch. She had grown used to the calmness of this place, but there was still a part of her that felt unsettled. She had been hurt for so long that it was hard to believe something could last. But she was learning to trust him. And with that trust came a growing sense of hope. "I've never had someone like you in my life," she said, looking at him for the first time, really looking at him. "I never thought someone would care for me, just for who I am. No strings attached." The human smiled, a soft, reassuring smile that reached his eyes. "You deserve that," he said. "Everyone does." For the first time in a long time, the alien woman felt the weight in her chest lift, even if just a little. She didn't have to be anyone's property anymore. She didn't have to be afraid. With him, she was more than just a slave. She was a person who mattered. The bond between them was growing stronger, not out of obligation or pity, but out of genuine care. It was something neither of them had expected, but both of them needed. She was learning, step by step, to trust not only the human but also herself. And that, perhaps, was the most important change of all. As the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, the alien woman felt a sense of peace she had never known before. It wasn't a perfect life, and there were still many unknowns ahead, but for the first time in years, she felt like she had a future, a real future. And that future was no longer one of fear, but one of hope, hope for a life she had never imagined possible. And it was all because of him. Life in the quiet house had begun to feel normal. The alien woman had grown accustomed to the peaceful routine, the gentle sounds of the humans' everyday life, and the simple tasks that made up their days. But that peace was about to be shattered. One morning, as she was tending to the small garden they had planted together, the human came outside, his face serious. The alien woman looked up, sensing something was wrong. He had always been calm, always kind, but today there was a look in his eyes she had never seen before, a mixture of concern and determination. "We need to talk," he said, his voice low but urgent. She dropped the watering can, suddenly afraid. "What is it? Is something wrong?" The human glanced over his shoulder, as if to make sure they were alone. "There are people looking for you," he said, his voice soft but steady. "The slavers who had you before. They've come to the city. They're searching for you, and I think they've figured out where you are." The alien woman's heart sank. She had hoped, in the safety of the human's home, that her past would stay buried. But now, the fear that had once consumed her returned, creeping through her veins like ice. The slavers, they had been cruel, using her for whatever they wanted without care or respect. She had no doubt that if they found her, they would take her back, or worse. She stepped back, instinctively wanting to hide. "What do we do? They can't find me here." The human stepped closer, his expression resolute. "They won't. I won't let them. I'll make sure you are safe." Her eyes widened in disbelief. How could he protect her from these people? The slavers were powerful, dangerous, and ruthless. But as she looked at him, she saw something in his eyes, a fierce determination. He wasn't going to let them take her, no matter the cost. "They've taken everything from me," she said quietly, her voice trembling. "I can't go back to that life. I can't." The human's hand gently rested on her shoulder. "You don't have to," he said. "I won't let them. They don't control you anymore. You're free now, and I'm going to make sure you stay that way." Her breath caught in her throat. The human's words, simple yet powerful, filled her with a sense of hope she had not felt in years. She didn't know how he would do it, but she believed him. He had never lied to her, never treated her like a thing. If he said he would protect her, she had no reason to doubt him. "Stay here," he instructed. "I'll go handle this. Stay inside. Keep out of sight. I'll make sure they don't find you." The alien woman nodded, her heart racing. She wanted to be strong, to help him, but she knew there was nothing she could do. She had spent too long running from her past to fight it now. All she could do was trust him, trust that he would keep his promise. As he walked toward the door, the alien woman's voice stopped him. "Be careful," she said, her words barely a whisper. The human turned back and gave her a reassuring smile. "I will. Just stay hidden. I'll be back soon." He left, and the alien woman stood there, her mind spinning with fear and uncertainty. She had never been more afraid. But this time, she wasn't alone. The human was out there, fighting for her. And for the first time in a long time, she believed that maybe, just maybe, she had a chance to be free. The alien woman waited inside the small home, her heart pounding with fear. She had followed the human's instructions, staying out of sight, but every moment that passed felt like a lifetime. The minutes stretched into hours, each one heavier than the last. The house, once peaceful and calm, now felt like a cage. She wanted to help, to do something, but she knew she was too weak and too afraid to make a difference. The human had gone out there to face the slavers, and all she could do was wait. Outside, she heard the faint sound of footsteps, the crunch of gravel under boots. Her breath hitched, and she pressed herself against the wall, straining to listen. Were the slavers here? Was the human in danger? She couldn't stay inside and do nothing. Her mind raced, thinking of all the horrible things the slavers had done to her, and the fear grew in her chest. She couldn't let them take her again. Suddenly, the door creaked open, and the alien woman froze, her heart stopping for a moment. But instead of the cold, cruel slavers she expected, it was the human. His face was calm, but his clothes were dusty, and there was a slight redness on his cheek, as if he had been in a fight. He walked in quietly, shutting the door behind him. "It's over," he said simply, his voice steady but tired. The alien woman blinked in disbelief. You stopped them." The human nodded. "I did. They're not a threat anymore." The words felt impossible to believe. The slavers were dangerous, violent people, and yet here the human was, unharmed, standing in front of her. It didn't make sense. How could someone like him, just one person, take on the slavers and win? "How?" she whispered, her voice trembling with awe. The human smiled slightly. "I wasn't alone. I made a few friends along the way. Some people owe me favors." Her eyes widened. She had no idea he had been making allies or that he was capable of pulling off something like this. The idea of people helping him, working together, was a new concept for her. She had always been alone, forced to survive on her own. But the human had a network of support, people who cared enough to help him protect her. "I don't understand," she said softly. "How did you manage to get rid of them?" The human shrugged, sitting down in a chair near the table. "It wasn't easy, but sometimes, if you know the right people, you can make the impossible happen." The alien woman couldn't stop staring at him. He had put himself at risk, fought against powerful enemies, and won, all for her. It was hard to grasp. She had always been taught that humans were selfish, that they only cared about themselves. But here, in front of her, was proof that the human was different. "I don't know how to thank you," she said quietly, her voice filled with emotion. "I can't believe you did that for me." The human looked at her, his expression softening. "You don't have to thank me. I did it because I promised you I would keep you safe, and I always keep my promises." Tears filled her eyes, but she quickly wiped them away, embarrassed. She had been through so much, had been so broken by the world, that she didn't know how to accept this kindness. It felt like too much hope, too much goodness. But she could see it now, the human sincerity, the bond they had built together. "You're safe now," the human continued, "and no one is going to take that away from you. You've got a new life, a real life, and it's all yours." For the first time in years, the alien woman allowed herself to believe it. She was safe. She was free. And it was all because of him, her protector, her friend, the man who had fought for her when no one else would. She smiled, a small, tentative smile, as she finally let herself believe in the future. "Thank you," she whispered again, this time with a sense of peace. The human gave her a gentle nod. "You're welcome." And for the first time, the alien woman felt like she truly belonged. The days after the slavers had been dealt with were filled with a new kind of calm. The alien woman spent more time in the small garden, working with the human to plant new flowers and tend to the crops they had started. She didn't need to be told what to do anymore. Slowly but surely, she had started to understand the concept of having a life that was her own, one without chains or fear. The human had kept his promise. The slavers were gone, and the woman was safe. But the safety wasn't the only thing she had gained. She had gained something even more important: peace. For the first time in years, she felt free, not just in body, but in spirit. The constant tension in her chest had started to fade. No longer did she wake up with the feeling of dread, wondering when the next cruel master would come to claim her. Instead, she woke up in the mornings, greeted by the quiet chirping of birds outside the window and the soft light of the sun filtering through the trees. The human had also made an effort to show her new things that she had never experienced before. One evening, after they had finished their chores, he handed her a small weathered book. "I thought you might like to read," he said with a smile. She looked at the book with hesitation. Reading was something she had never been taught. In the world she had come from, education was a luxury she couldn't afford. But the human sat next to her and began to read aloud. And though the words were foreign to her at first, she began to understand. It wasn't just the words that made a difference. It was the warmth in the human's voice as he read. There was no rush, no pressure, just the simple joy of sharing a moment together. As the weeks passed, the alien woman began to heal in more ways than one. She would often find herself sitting in the sun, closing her eyes, and just letting the warmth sink into her skin. She hadn't allowed herself to feel something as simple as warmth for so long. It felt almost foreign, yet comforting. One evening, after a long day of working together in the garden, the human asked if she wanted to take a walk with him. They had done it before, but this time it felt different. As they walked down the winding path through the trees, the alien woman spoke. "I didn't know what it felt like to have a home," she said quietly, her eyes on the ground as they walked. "I didn't know what it felt like to be cared for." The human looked at her, his expression soft. "You do now." She nodded, but there was a question in her eyes. "But how do I move forward? How do I forget the past?" The human paused, taking a deep breath. "You don't have to forget it. It's part of who you are. But you don't have to live there anymore. You can choose to move forward, one step at a time." She looked at him then, truly looked at him, and for the first time, she understood. He wasn't asking her to forget her pain or erase her past. He was simply offering her a chance to live again, a chance to create new memories, new moments, with someone who cared. For the first time in a long time, she smiled. It was a small smile, one full of uncertainty, but it was a smile nonetheless. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice filled with gratitude, "for giving me this chance." The human smiled back, his eyes filled with warmth. "You don't need to thank me. I'm just doing what anyone would do for someone they care about." In that moment, the alien woman realized that she had finally found what she had always longed for, not just safety, but love. And with that love, she knew she could face anything the future might bring. Together, they could build a new life, one filled with hope, healing, and the promise of a future where she would never again be treated like dirt. The days grew longer as the alien woman and the human settled into their new life. What had started as a place of safety had slowly become a home, a place filled with warmth and care. The alien woman no longer feared the slavers, and the quiet calm of the home gave her the chance to begin healing. But more than that, it gave her the chance to dream. It was one of those peaceful mornings when the human spoke up, breaking the silence as they sat in the kitchen, sharing breakfast. "I've been thinking," he said, looking at her carefully. "You don't have to stay here forever if you don't want to. You're free to choose your own future now. You can go anywhere, do anything." The alien woman paused, the spoon halfway to her mouth, as his words sank in. For so long, she had been confined by others' choices. Every decision she made had been based on survival. Now she was being given the freedom to choose what came next, and the idea both excited and terrified her. "You mean I can leave?" she asked, her voice uncertain. I thought I was meant to stay here with you." The human smiled gently. "You can stay as long as you want, but I want you to know that you have a choice. No one owns you anymore. You're free to explore the world, to see what else is out there. If you want to stay with me, I'll be here, but you're not stuck." The alien woman felt a rush of emotions. The thought of leaving felt strange, almost wrong after everything the human had done for her. But at the same time, the idea of having a future where she could make her own choices, where she wasn't bound by fear or control, felt like a dream she had never dared to imagine. "I've never had a choice before," she said quietly, almost to herself. "I don't know what I would do. I've always just survived." The human looked at her, his eyes understanding. "You don't have to know all the answers right now, but one thing I want you to understand is that your life is yours. You have the right to choose your path." For a long moment, the alien woman sat in silence, thinking. She had spent years being told what to do, how to live. Her life had been a series of commands, orders she had no choice but to obey. But now she had the chance to carve out her own future, and though the uncertainty was overwhelming, it was also freeing. "What if I don't want to leave?" she asked, her voice small but steady. The human's smile widened. "Then don't. Stay here with me. We can build something together. I want you to be happy, wherever that is." The alien woman looked at him, really looked at him. He had given her more than just freedom. He had given her hope. And now she could see a future that wasn't defined by pain and fear, but by possibilities and choices. She didn't have to run anymore. She didn't have to live in the shadows of her past. Slowly, a smile began to spread across her face, tentative at first, but growing stronger with each passing second. It wasn't just a smile of gratitude or relief. It was a smile of hope. For the first time, she saw the world as something full of potential, not danger. "I want to stay," she said, her voice filled with certainty now. "I want to stay here with you." The human nodded, his expression warm and content. "Then we'll build that future together," he said. And for the first time in her life, the alien woman believed in the future. It wasn't just a future of survival. It was a future of choice, of freedom, and of love. Together, they would create something new, something beautiful, far beyond the chains that had once bound her. The days that followed felt like a new beginning, not just for the alien woman, but for both of them. The human and the alien woman had grown closer, their bond strengthening with each passing day. It wasn't just a friendship. It was something deeper, something that felt like it could last forever. Together, they were unstoppable. The house, once a quiet, empty place, had transformed. There was life in every corner. The garden they had worked so hard on was now blooming with colorful flowers. The rooms were filled with laughter and warmth, and every day brought new moments to cherish. The alien woman no longer felt like a stranger in this place. It had become her home, a real home, where she could be herself. One evening, as the sun set and bathed the world in soft, golden light, the human turned to her with a thoughtful expression. "I've been thinking," he said, his voice gentle, "about the future. We've made a lot of progress, but there's so much more out there. There's a whole world, a whole universe. I want to see it all, with you." The alien woman looked at him, her heart swelling with emotion. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I mean, I want to go beyond this place. I want to explore new worlds, meet new people. I've spent so much of my life fighting for survival. But now, I think we have the chance to really live, to see the universe, and make a difference together. What do you say?" The alien woman felt a rush of excitement and fear. She had never dreamed of anything beyond the small life she had come to know here. The thought of traveling to new places, of seeing the stars up close, was both thrilling and terrifying. But as she looked at the human, she saw the same excitement in his eyes, an excitement that mirrored her own. "I've never imagined a life like that," she said, her voice filled with wonder. "I've always been told where to go, what to do. But now I have the chance to choose. And I want to choose this. I want to see the universe with you." The human smiled, his eyes full of affection and pride. "Then let's go. Together, we can do anything. We've already overcome so much." The alien woman smiled back, her heart filled with joy. This was it. This was the future she had always dreamed of, a future filled with endless possibilities. And now, with the human by her side, she knew they could face whatever challenges came their way. Together, they would explore new worlds, encounter new people, and create a life that was theirs to shape. No longer would they be bound by the past. The chains were gone, and so was the fear. The future was open, waiting for them to take it, and they were ready. As they stood side by side, watching the stars begin to twinkle in the sky, the alien woman felt something she had never felt before. Hope, true hope. She had found freedom, love, and a future that was hers to live. And with the human by her side, there was nothing they couldn't do. They were no longer alone. They were no longer broken. Together, they were unstoppable.